Every country wants to see that, yes, at the end of the day, people respect their stand and stay on issues that has to do with the issues of transparency, reduction in corruption, government effectiveness, political stability and absence of violence, regulatory quality, rule of law, and voice and accountability. It goes on. The list is a very broad list, and when you're talking of good governance, you have to look at every leadership, their foreign policy, their internal policy, and how they are able to meet up with their goals based on the resources that is available to them. So these are the critical aspects that definitely, when we discuss the issue of good governance, we definitely have to look at them. The issue of budget implementation, the budget preparation, and then the issue of the National Assembly. How are they able to put up with legislatures that will assist the common man on the street? And then you talk about the justice system itself. How effective has the justice system been? How just is the justice system? When somebody go to the court, how will he be able to get judgment in a situation whereby he will feel, okay, yes, this is the right thing according to the rules and regulation guiding a particular issue that is dealing with. So this is definitely what we are going to be discussing today. Understanding the concept of good governance is key for every Nigerian. The indices are there. How do you look at them? How do you see them? What were the indices in the past? How is it now? And then what is our projection for the future is basically all what we are going to be surrounding our talks on this morning, as we expect our guests to be in the studio. This main person of Samaila Musa, who is the Director of Strategy and Planning of the CNG. So he'll be here shortly. But then, before he comes, we'll go for a short break. And when we return, we'll be able to do justice to this topic this morning.
Please give us the permission to search you. You can go.
Is this a movie? If it happened.
Officer, I beg carry and go station. When our Oga come, you come meet am for there.
Hey, Mr. Man, I cannot do that.
Tell your Oga to come to our station when he returns.
Am I in a movie? If it happen,
Mama, please. Mama, please.
Thank God you're here. Do the needful.
Mama, please, just 3 weeks,
Madam, why did you invite us to come help chase your tenant now?
This is a civil matter now.
Is this a movie? If it happen,
If we follow
The new police law.
Sir, can you please give us the permission to search you? You can go.
Is this a movie? If it happened.
officer, I beg carry and go station. When our Oga come, you come meet am for there.
Hey, Mr. Man, I cannot do that.
Tell your Oga to come to our station when he returns.
Am I in a movie? If it happen,
Mama, please. Mama, please.
thank God you're here. Do the needful.
Mama, please, just 3 weeks now.
Madam, why did you invite us to come help chase your tenant now?
This is a civil matter now.
Is this a movie? If it happen,
If we follow
The new police law.
We are a nation blessed with people of diverse cultures, religions, languages, and opinions. It is ironic that we are now being ripped apart by our greatest strength, our diversity. We have allowed intolerance, insensitivity, bigotry, and nepotism to blind our vision of the greatness we can achieve working together as one. We may not have the same culture, nor religion, nor language, but we all belong to the same nation by the divine will of God. We did not choose to be Nigerians. Nigeria chose us. This nation is our divine heritage, and if we open our eyes, we would realize that what divides us pales in comparison to what unites us. And by the comparison and conciliation of our differences, we will grow until our differences disappear. Our unity cannot be willed by mere declarations, nor do we get unity by ignoring the questions that beg for answers. We must celebrate our diversity and debate our differences without fracturing our unity. Our strength is not in our numbers, but in our unity, because even the weak become strong when united. Nigeria unite. This message is brought to you by Abuja Broadcasting Corporation, owners and operators of ASO Radio 93.5 FM Abuja, ASO Television Star Times Channel 127, Free TV Channel 507, and UHF Channel 38.
Welcome back. Before I went for that break, I was able to establish that today we are going to be discussing the issue of good governance. And in discussing good governance, definitely, there are parameters we use. And in looking at these parameters, you compare what we have presently to what has been on ground in the past. Or maybe you look at one administration and then you compare it with the other administration, like what we are having presently for the past 6 years. We have the APC government in place, and definitely they have their programs, and then they have all those ministries that carry out the implementations of this particular program. And you also note that every year budget is made available to Nigeria, and as a result of that, all the ministries carry out activities within the country. And you also know one of the key indices in issue of good governance is the issue of transparency. How is the government transparent to make sure that, yes, information is getting, implementation is successfully done, and all those necessary things are put in place. And lastly, if you remember, the president had an interview yesterday where he stated some significant issues that has to do with the nation. So these are the key things we are going to be looking at this morning with Samaila Musa. Samaila Musa is now in the studio. So we'll just go for a quick one, and then we'll come back, and then we'll start the conversation.
We are a nation blessed with people of diverse cultures, religions, languages, and opinions. It is ironic that we are now being ripped apart by our greatest strength, our diversity. We have allowed intolerance, insensitivity, bigotry, and nepotism to blind our vision of the greatness we can achieve working together as one. We may not have the same culture, nor religion, nor language, but we all belong to the same nation by the divine will of God. We did not choose to be Nigerians. Nigeria chose us. This nation is our divine heritage, and if we open our eyes, we would realize that what divides us pales in comparison to what unites us. And by the comparison and conciliation of our differences, we will grow until our differences disappear. Our unity cannot be willed by mere declarations, nor do we get unity by ignoring the questions that beg for answers. We must celebrate our diversity and debate our differences without fracturing our unity. Our strength is not in our numbers, but in our unity, because even the weak become strong when united. Nigeria unite. This message is brought to you by Abuja Broadcasting Corporation, owners and operators of ASO Radio 93.5 FM Abuja, ASO Television, Star Times Channel 127, Free TV Channel 507, and UHF Channel 38.
Welcome back. Before I went for that break, I was able to tell you that we are having Samaila Musa this morning, and despite his tight schedule, he was able to make it down to the studio. Good morning, Mr. Samaila Musa.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Before your coming, I was able to put up the discussion before your coming, and I believe our viewers and listeners this morning will definitely be paying attention to what we are going to discuss because it concerns every Nigerian, the issue of good governance. So, in your own perspective, what do you think should be the status quo for good governance?
Yeah, good governance is very, very important. It's very key in a nation that is actually aspiring to be developed. And, world over, we can see so many indices that actually, is put together to really have good governance. Good governance to which without, there's no any meaningful impact that actually can be made. Now, number one thing is, I think our leaders, need to come down from their high horses to understand that you're actually a servant and not a ruler, you understand? So when you begin to look at it from that angle, if I have a master, I need to serve him. So that mentality is going to go a long way to actually deliver to the people who you're meant to serve. And don't see them like subject kind of stuff where you just feel anything goes, they don't have any right to challenge you, they don't ask questions and all of that. So I think the number one prerequisite to that is you have to get this right. Your psyche, your mentality needs to say that you're actually a servant. And if you're there to serve, you need to do everything necessary for you to serve diligently. And so there's a need for accountability, and that's another thing. We have in this part of the world where people don't feel they're accountable to anything. Nobody wants to give you a heads up as to what's going on or any updates. People feel, look, they are not accountable to you. You understand? And some of our leaders have actually gotten to a stage in their lives where they always feel they are more Nigerian than the people who they're actually leading. So really, if you put these two together, there's no way you can have good governance. You understand? Because if you are not accountable, for instance, you're here in ASO, TV and radio, if you are not accountable in any sense, you probably is not going to be here by this time. You understand? So if our leaders are not seeing themselves as to be accountable for whatever they do, either in office or out of office, they are actually going to be called upon to account for it. We're not going to make any meaningful impact. So to get it right in Nigeria, especially at this kind of time, it's turbulent at this time for us as a nation. So many things are coming up at the same time. Our leaders need to be more responsive and responsible, for us to begin to even see them. Because you see, that goes a long way to build our confidence. When you know you have a good governance, it builds your confidence as a citizen to even do the right thing. You understand? Because you see, it's been kind of a top-bottom approach kind of thing. When the people who are at the top are actually doing it by example, certain good precedents, the rest of us will actually follow suit without having any issues with that. So good governance is all-encompassing, and we need to begin to look at it holistically for us to get it right.
Okay, in getting it right, one major aspect that really plays role in this particular aspect is our conduct of elections. And looking at it critically, over the time we've seen improvement in the system. But looking towards the issue of elections that are coming, probably state elections that will be coming up within the same year and the rest, what can you say about the standard of conduct of election in Nigeria?
Well, I think we're improving, just like you said. We cannot talk about good and credible elections without mentioning people like Jega, you understand, and that's why it's important for good governance. It's important for people to always remember that they need to set a legacy, you understand. So even if the man is no more, we're going to keep making reference to it, that he actually lived above board, you understand, because this was somebody who was there supervise or oversee an election, even though the sitting president didn't win. And you see, he stood his ground, put his foot on the ground, and said the right thing needs to be done. That is actually some of the things we are yearning for, because it gives the citizens hope. You understand? So talking about incredible elections, he has done his own path. You understand? It's left for the people who are coming after to also try to write their names in gold. But we're just talking about Electoral Amendment Act, in recent times. It has always, it's been in the media space recently. One will expect that in order to also get it right, that the people have spoken. They want direct primaries. They want to have a say in the process. The constituents have spoken, so the National Assembly listened to their constituents, even though they didn't play, or they've not really played their part to the latter, because what we're saying now is as if the whole thing was just a carried. It was like a decoy to make believe kind of thing that, we're actually there for the people, whereas in the actual sense, you're not there for the people, because you should be more concerned if the president is not ascending or appending his signature on the Electoral Amendment Act. You should be more concerned to say, Mr. President, we don't know what to go back home to tell our constituents, because this is what they want. They're the reason why we're here. You didn't appoint us. We came here because they actually say go there and go and represent us. So you will expect them to actually stand firm and solid to say this needs to be done. But what we're saying now, just yesterday, the president also, applauded the leadership of the National Assembly. And I'm disappointed, because if we're talking about people doing the right thing and you're coming on TV to reel out their CVs to say this about Senate President, the Speaker, we already know where this whole thing is going. It's not going to see the light of the day. But you see, we're talking about this because we're talking about credible elections. When you build the confidence of the people, they begin to see, even before the election comes, they begin to see that, no, the right thing is going to happen. Rather than people begin to feel, the election has been conducted before the time. You understand? So it's actually a big challenge. I love to see a situation where we get to a stage where after casting your votes, you're not having any fear that somebody is going to write another result somewhere. That means we're actually having a credible elections. We've seen situations where people, after voting, the van that is taking the voters' card from, those zones, perhaps in the states, maybe to the state headquarters, they got ambushed and set ablaze. In some cases, you have another set of voters' cards somewhere that are being printed. You understand? So, and all of this does not go without the consent of the electoral umpires. You understand? And that is actually a big spanner in the wheel of progress of having a credible election, because if people who are supposed to oversee the election are also participating in rigging it, it becomes a very big issue. So going forward, I will want to see a situation where everybody sit up to live above board. The INEC chairman, I think, is trying his best, but sometimes it's not enough, especially when you are at the top there and you feel, because you're doing your best, you don't need to follow up to know what goes down the line, because some personnel in the chain of that hierarchy can actually, make a mess of everything you think you are achieving or you try to achieve. So that's actually also an area to look into.
But then you didn't really talk more about the issue of the participation, because it is one thing for INEC to put up the facilities for the conduct of a successful election. If you look at what happened in Anambra State, state of so many people, persons, and then you just have very few determining who becomes their leader. So in this aspect now, what do you think is the major problem in terms of people going out to make sure they cast their vote before they even start thinking of if it will be secure or not?
You see, the major issue actually is issue of security. people are not feeling they are secure. I mean, so many threats are being issued while campaigns are going on prior to the day of elections. There are so many issues about insecurity on the day of voting. People are feeling you cannot cast your vote and go home safely. Why do you want to jeopardize your life? You understand? Because you try to make a point. So quite a lot of people, and especially politicians, use that a lot, especially in areas where they feel they cannot win. So they begin to issue threats. Indirectly, they begin to issue threats through their supporters to say, oh, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. You understand? We're going to burn down this whole place and stuff like that. So as a matter of fact, in some cases, people vacate their domain when the election is just around the corner, because they don't even know what's going to happen, whether they're going to even come home to come and see them. I mean, to come and attack them at home. So insecurity is the number one issue that needs to be tackled headlong for people to have the confidence to begin to participate. Another thing that is actually working against that is the issue of people not having confidence in the process, you understand? And that's why this Electoral Amendment Act will always come up. Because when I feel the person who is supposed to be representing us, wasn't we that actually wanted him, some godfather somewhere actually pinpointed him and say he's the one, whether he has what it takes or he doesn't. So we're already losing interest in the process. I mean, the confidence is actually getting to zero level. So you see people losing interest to say, look, it's been done already. They've concluded the election before the election, so there's no point for me to go and waste my time there. So these are actually issues that have been, coming up over time to, discourage people from actually going to cast their votes.
In putting up issues that has to do with good governance, we started with a major issue, the issue of elections, because that is where our leadership starts from. But then we cannot also run away from the fact that every year there is budget presentation, and every year we see ministries do have their plans to see that at the end of the year they implement this plan. Just last week, the president signed the 2022 budget. What is your view on the signing of the budget?
Well, it's timely. Actually, it came very timely. I mean, there was a time where the budget for the year, we perhaps will be talking, maybe around June, we'll still be talking about signing or no signing of 2022 budget. But this actually came timely, and this is actually commendable. But you see, I just had a privilege of just, scanning through the budget, and, I think about 17 trillion, and about 26% of the budget is actually for debt servicing. I mean, that's actually almost not acceptable. It tells you of our debt profile. But you see, going forward is, if we can learn, because we also had in the past where by December, you see, ministries have not actually expended maybe 1/3 of the budget meant for that ministry, and there's actually this rush all around the place, of returning money back to the federation account and stuff like that. But so if we can get it right and start this early, you understand, I'm sure before the end of the year, whatever needs to be taken care of from the budget must have been taken care of. We should actually get to a stage where by perhaps mid-year, we should be talking about a supplementary budget, you understand, and that's the way to move the country forward, But I haven't really taken the pains to really study the budget into to know how much is actually given to education, because education should have be a priority. And over time, we've seen where that has actually been changed by, with other party issues. When I talk about parties, I'm talking about, just going to town to paint the town red in the name of, walking. Going into some white elephant projects and stuff like that. But you see, education and health should be a priority. And especially now that we're having this issue of COVID or no COVID, or and different variants of it coming out, I think it's important that education and health should be tops on our national budget. But I think it's a good one that this is coming early.
Okay, now the president had a chat yesterday, and during the conversation, issues were raised on the issue of economy, and then looking critically at what is focused on is the issue of agriculture, the agricultural sector, that is ready to revamp that particular ministry, and then make sure that, yes, we have the best in the country. So far, so good. What can you say about the achievement so far when they started their first tenure, now that they are almost going back?
Well, you see, the problem is, I think perhaps the president, just like we always know, he's been having these issues over time. They allow charlatans to occupy positions in this government that he himself will not ever be proud of. Time wasters occupying positions and doing nothing. I think the previous people have actually make a mess of whatever achievement this administration we want to showcase, in terms of achievement in that ministry especially. Agriculture has the highest number of offices in Abuja, if you want to ask me. And I'm sure that cut across board all over the country, where I can tell you in Abuja alone, when you begin to look at the parastatals of agric in different places, you scattered all around town, you almost want to lose count, because that is how important that ministry is or ought to be. But unfortunately, not much has been heard about it until the president, wakes up to say, oh, come on, what are you doing there? And excuse the guys who are actually making a mess of the whole system. And I think, well, maybe so far, if I want to go by rating, because sometimes most of them are actually long-term projects, not something that you can make an assessment of in the short time, you understand, because it takes a while before you begin to see the dividends of whatever is happening there. But I think they're making some giant strides in that regard, of late, and there is no way, because what happened to us in Nigeria is we were running an agrarian economy, and all of a sudden we, drifted into a petroleum-driven economy, and it's been a difficult one. I also heard Mr. President when he asking about the economic advisor, that he said he made a presentation to them during the executive council meeting, that just about 25% of the arable land in Nigeria is actually in use. That's to tell you that virtually everybody has been sleeping. Nobody wants to take agri serious, and you see, because it's capital intensive. When you want to go into economic farming, it's very capital intensive. Most of the farmers we have in Nigeria are people who are actually cultivating what they and their families are going to eat, and perhaps just take a little fraction to the market just to have something in their pocket. But the big guys who have been looking into that area are actually looking elsewhere. Everybody just want to go into oil and gas because that's what the system says, and that's a bad one.
You mentioned the word oil and gas, and looking at it critically, the president still is in charge of that particular ministry. And so far, so good. What's your rating on this particular ministry?
Well, I think it's just on paper that the president is the minister in charge of that ministry. It's actually not seen anywhere else. I do not see the president either commissioning projects in that area, or attending some functions that you say, oh, the minister of petroleum was actually there. You understand? So what you see all the time is actually the minister of states. There's no point making yourself the substantive minister if you know the task of governing Nigeria alone is too overwhelming for you to function in that regard. So, but having said that, everybody can, it's debatable to say, oh no, he can do that from his room and stuff like that, but we're having serious problems in that ministry, that virtually everybody is actually overlooking it. You wake up someday, they tell you, oh no, there's going to be fuel scarcity. Some threats are being issued. Some persons are saying they want to go on strike. Different theories over time. And I think the president is vast or versatile in oil and gas, because he is a ministry he's handled before in the past, you understand? So he should know that ministry so well to know that that's actually, if that's the only ministry I'm taking to be under me as the sitting president, I'm going to make sure that I fix virtually 90% of the problems in that sector. such that, I mean, subsequent government don't need to bother about that sector anymore, because there are some of these issues in that sector that actually needs looking at once and for all. You see, the world has moved to a stage where systems are working. Whether the president is in the country or the minister is not around, there's a system in place that will run itself.
But then, if you look critically at that same ministry, you know, before the coming of President Muhammadu Buhari, there was this issue of fuel scarcity. You see, inflation, the prices, no stable oil prices, and the rest. But the coming of Mr. President, he was able to stabilize that particular aspect. And most especially towards the end of the year, you see people who are hiding this fuel. But now you don't have them. Before now, we have people diverting fuel from Nigeria to other countries. But now we are not having it. And all these are happening under him.
Yeah, you see, I will give it to him if when you talk about in the area of hoarding or no hoarding of fuel, especially the December period where you actually don't have that crisis. But you see, you're trying to solve an issue and another one is actually rearing its ugly head. The president is trying to welcome us into 2022 with the hike in the price of fuel. And this price, we're not talking about 20 naira increase, you know. We're talking about something, I think they're mentioning 340. And you see, every time I have issues where people try to put it, I mean, give it to Labour to say, oh, no, Labour will never agree, Labour will not allow it to happen. It's a lie. Labour is part and parcel of the system. As a matter of fact, they will suggest to the government to say, look, if this is what you want to do, we are going to, I mean, we're going to be taken care of in this regard. But put it at 340. When we are going to make noise. So when we make noise, you now remove 60 naira or you remove 100 naira and bring it back to you understand, the actual price. But you see, these are problems that are man-made. You know, I mean, it's not at this kind of time that Nigeria is actually having this hunger crisis. There's hunger in the land, and that's why majority of those people who are actually living in high wall, houses don't even know people are actually dying out there of hunger. You understand? Beans is no longer food for the poor. So we have gotten to a stage where already things are at the highest it has ever gotten to. And then at that same time, while Sukkot is not yet coming, is when you want to increase because we also always know that, any price in fuel has this multiplier effect. It just go spiral into every other sector you want to talk about, So, and for ordinary citizens, two things are key: food and transport. You understand? And these are the first two major areas that is going to be affected. So sometimes there are some policies that are anti-people that will have the tendency to actually rubbish your achievement in that same regard.
But still on this particular issue, we've seen economists and professionals in this field, just like you, coming up to back this particular removal of fuel subsidy because of if you don't remove it, definitely you'll be spending more on that particular issue. And then the issue of infrastructure. We'll be having infrastructural decay, no new infrastructure in place to help the citizens.
You see, that's why it's most times what we do all the time is we try to rob Paul, to pay Peter in Nigeria, instead of trying to solve a problem. Okay, if I want to even go with those that belong to this class of thought today, say, subsidy should be removed. You're now making a case to say, is it 5,000 naira they said going to be shared and all of that? Tell me, what's the justification for that? What's the the logic behind all these issues? World over, in countries that are making progress, you find out that there are palliatives. We only got to know about palliatives when COVID came to Nigeria. It's been going on all over the world. You understand? Government is always looking at ways to actually alleviate the pains of people. You get it? So when a government is now saying, no, we cannot sustain this system any longer. Yes, I understand that. I mean, this argument has been going on. They inherited it. It's been going on from way back. I think it was Sanusi and Okonjo-Iweala were part of the committee that was trying to sensitize Nigerians why it had to happen at that time. But you see, sometimes you have to look at your indices. You have to look at so many other factors to say, well, what in the interim, what can we do to actually take Nigeria or Nigerian masses out of this hunger crisis, so that immediately after the hunger crisis and everybody is feeling a bit relieved, then we introduce this, because it's something that is long overdue. You understand? So are the things that I expect. Those monies this mentioned, they're going to be given to some persons. I can tell you it will happen the same way, the issue of palliatives or some monies coming from Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs was going, it will end up in the pockets of the already haves. And the have-nots will continue to be in perpetual poverty. You understand? So nothing is going to actually, if you see this 5,000 naira going to the actual people, it's just for photoshops. It's just for photography and videos to show in the national. Because when we heard it the other time where a minister can come on air to say that so amount in trillions were actually expended in giving when kids are in their homes. And the majority of the kids who benefit from this are actually in the rural areas. These are places where you don't even have
I would like to
address.
take you on that, but then if you look at our presentation as of that particular point in time, we all understand that the kids are at home. But it is not the ministry that go deep down the streets to implement this. They collaborate with states. They give this money to state. Maybe the state at that particular point in time may not have started the program, but definitely they have to prepare for the program. But then before you comment further on this, we'll be allowing our viewers and our listeners who have been paying attention to our discussion this morning to also join this conversation by calling 090-5740-8127. So I'll take that again, 090-5740-8127. We are discussing the issue of good governance, and we believe it has an impact on everyone in Nigeria. So still on that same issue, sometimes this thing takes time. The processing, the procurement, and all those aspects that need to be dealt with before we move into that. But then let us also look, because it is in relation to this, we are also talking about the good governance, the issue of openness and transparency in government.
Yeah, you see, while in the issue of openness and transparency, I mentioned accountability ab initio. If that ministry knows that if anything goes wrong in terms of accountability, they're going to pay for it. Somebody is going to be answerable to, whatever it is that goes wrong. Everybody will sit up. You cannot say, because it's not the ministry that will do the follow-up till it gets to the beneficiaries. That is why it's a ministry. You need to follow up to the latter. You don't give out monies and go back to sleep and say, no, I've done my part. No, you haven't done your part. If the people at the lower end of the chain misbehave, you're going to be the one responsible for it. And that's why you need to put a system in place. And that's why I talk about system. System is running the world now. When you put a system in place, there's a system that checks to know whether the beneficiaries are actually getting it, and you're getting the feedback. This is what really make up what is called appraisal. You need to sit down per time to know, okay, after some appraisal, this is where we're getting it wrong. This is the mistake we made that first time. The first money that was given out, this is where it's stopped, or this is where it ended. It ended in some private pockets. You as a minister, try to alert the people, try to alert the security agencies saddled with that responsibility to go investigate it. And people will always know that you are actually on top of it. You don't make announcement and you go back to bed and you wake up the next morning and say, we actually expended so amount of money. Who is getting it? Who are you giving the monies to? You understand? You need to follow up. Because, you see, when you talk about good governance, it's not enough to come up with good policies. A good governance entails that you follow up to see how the implementation goes. It goes beyond even the implementation. It goes to get feedback as to what impact is it making.
Could that be the reason why we have our recurrent budget on the high?
Well, I think it is one of the things I saw where the Minister of Finance was talking about this recurrent, but I was actually in a meeting. But I would love to hear that. But I believe it's part of what is actually making the recurrent to be very high. But you see, it's not enough to also make the recurrent to be very high if the people are not actually living to the expectations of where this monies are being expended. I mean, if you make this high, I will expect to see results. And that's why in the private sector, some people can actually say, oh, we're hiring so X and Y, Z, even though we are paying them times 3 of what we're supposed to pay them, because I expect this. So when these kind of issues are coming up, while recurrent is going high, because we believe that, okay, because you want to do a thorough follow-up, you want these things to be done to the latter. it's not enough for you after the budget has been signed, monies are being, given out, and then somebody say, no, I have done my part and go back to sleep. If anything goes wrong, you should be jailed for it.
Okay. Now on this same issue of the sustainability and long-term plan of Mr. President, you know the budget is about economic recovery and sustainability growth. And then looking at this particular budget and the presentation, the breakdown from the National Assembly down to the Federal Executive Council, do you really have hope that it will change so many things?
Well, I have hope. We are a people of hope in Nigeria. We have always been hoping. It's just that quite a lot of times they've dashed our hopes. Quite a lot of times they always make us feel there's no point to be hopeful. But you see, we are a people of hope, and that's why we're even still moving. Nigerians actually are very strong people, and strong-willed people. And with this development, I think if also the National Assembly will actually sit up, but unfortunately, any kind of rating you want to rate this government is
before you complete that, let us get this caller. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Please, your name and where you are calling from, please.
Please, I'm Usman Suleiman Jamata.
Okay, Usman, good morning.
Calling from Suleja.
Okay, thank you so much for calling.
Please, I send my greeting to your guest.
Okay, he's listening.
I really appreciate you people topic of discussion.
Thank you so much.
You see, the problem we are having in Nigeria is nothing but corruption. Until we sit down to address the issue of corruption properly. The government may come up with a good policy that will cause attraction to the ordinary people. But at the end of the day, the people at the amongst of their peers will be the ones siphoning the money needed for ordinary Nigeria. And what is paining me mostly is this. Once money is being disbursed, whoever the money is given to should be accounted for. If such move has been put on ground, I believe 100% issue of corruption will be reduced. But there's no measure on ground on how to make sure that there is public accountability. You can't just siphon Nigerian money and go with it. Just like that. It's because we don't make them accountable. And that's why we are facing most of those problems within our environment. So please, I am begging the government, they should adopt decorum and civility to make sure they create an avenue of making the public office holder accountable. That is how we are going to have a good governance. You will see that people will be scared of looting Nigerians' money. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you so much, Usman, for adding your voice this morning to the program. The issue of good governance is a national call and not just issues that has to do with some set of persons in government. And if you listen carefully to Usman, he made mention of the issue of corruption. Actually, I was coming down to that. Looking at the corruption indices, have we improved, or we are still where we are, or we have not really started the process?
We have gotten worse. That's the truth. It's visible to the blind, audible to the deaf, that corruption has gotten worse in Nigeria. Either by design or for whatever reason. And you see, it's not just about this government. It has been in place. But sometimes when some persons you felt would pay more attention to it because that's what their campaign slogan or that's what their mantra on which they ride on is, you think they will pay more attention to it. The president perhaps is the only one you can actually exonerate, to a large extent. Everybody's just partying around the place. You understand? There's nothing that has changed other than the mode of it has changed. You understand? People no longer buy houses with the proceeds of corruption such that you can actually say, oh, so houses are being bought in Maitama. They have learned from the previous people who were there because they saw, oh, when you buy houses, they investigate and know who bought these houses. What they're doing, they actually laundering the money. And you see, money laundering has taken a dimension now that it doesn't need to leave your bank account. It doesn't need to leave anywhere. Bureau de change guys have some connections world over. You have $1 million here in Abuja. Where do you want to collect it? I want to collect it in New York. Go to New York. I'll send somebody to give it to you. That's what's happening. So it's gotten worse. And it's unfortunate that it's only the president that does not know that it has gotten worse.
But then, in that same aspect, we've been having the NFIU report, and then we've seen them also trying as much as possible to trace this. I mean, the National Financial Intelligence Unit.
Well, they're tracing the one they can trace, or the ones who are not willing to play balls. You understand? There are so many theories out there to say most of these guys you see in some of those places are actually multi-billionaires. You see young boys in AFCC, it has been alleged that they actually collected bribes from the people who are supposed to arrest. In some cases, they do some kind of a split bargain and say, oh, okay, you give us 60%, you go with 40%, and stuff like that. So many allegations like that are not being looked into. Whose head has rolled? Nobody. You understand? Apart from just making announcement to say, oh, the chairman of UFCC is suspended. He's not the only one there. He has boys who are executing these things for him. Where are those boys? Who knows them? Who has investigated them? Nobody does that. You understand? So what we're doing is, it's just like civil service. Everybody will tell you that a minister is an apprentice when it comes to corruption, compared to civil servants. Because when he gets to the ministry, he cannot perpetrate whatever he wants to do without the crooks in that ministry. They are the one to teach him that, your honorable minister, my honorable minister, this is how we used to do it. This is how to go about this, and stuff like that. Where are those people? They are still in those ministries. How do you want to curb corruption?
Sorry, we'll have another caller. Okay. Let us take the call. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Please, your name and where you are calling from, please.
Yes, my name is Cyril. I am calling from Abuja State.
Okay, thank you. You can make your submission, please.
Okay, so I'm actually asking if the government, are they actually listening to you people? Are they actually listening to our cries, to the voice of the masses who elected them? Do they actually know that there is hardship in the land? People are suffering, and a lot of things, prices are going up, and income doesn't grow. A lot of things grow, and income doesn't grow. Is that not hardship to the poor masses that elected people to the office? Are they actually listening? Are they actually doing something about it? Okay, now, if they want things to not get out of hand more than the way it is, they should better sit down and start planning on how to take care of three key stakeholders that will help to curb crime and corruption in this country. You see the police, you see the judiciary, and then you see I've mentioned the police, the judiciary, and the press. So how far a pressman, like a friend of mine, is a journalist, I know how many times we've been beaten up. And when you are afraid of your life, you can't be confident. You hold information. Then the police, they are there. And then you know about everything. So they should wake up and begin to take care of things before things get out of hand. Please, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for calling, and good morning indeed. You see, virtually everybody called, definitely trying to show their concern and the love for the country, and trying as much as possible to see that, yes, things should be done right. But the problem we're having, despite the fact that we've run out of time, the problem we are having, don't you think it is as a result of a longer period of not having competency, not having transparency in government that has accumulated over time, and it is having a great toll in the nation now?
Whether it's been a long time or not, I suppose, or I believe that when you're presenting yourself for leadership, you should have seen it all from backstage, you understand, and you believe you can fix it, that's why you presented yourself. You don't have any excuse. I mean, it's because it has been a long time issue. It's been a more or less like a culture. That's why you are here. That's why you came. Otherwise, nobody needs you to come fix it. If there's no problem, you don't have to come and fix anything. It's because there's a problem, and people saw that you have the competence, or you actually have seen it also from behind, and is coming to fix the whole thing now. That's why we're having you. But if you also come and begin to lament about it's been 100 years that corruption has been going on, then there's no point for you to be there. And I tell you this, right, is that you have quite a lot of institutions because nothing is being done right now. People are yearning to make it there, simply not because the salary is okay for them, or not because they are proud to work in those places, but because there's so much corruption going there. They are aspiring to also go there and go and take their own share of the national cake. You see small institutions as small as police recruitment. You see quite a lot of young people with the zeal. You want to go into police, you will think that these are people who really want to come serve their country because it's about service. No, they are eyeing the roger, the collecting on the road, because that's what the system says. That's what they know about police. That's what is prominent about police. And he's also looking at it that damn salary, if he likes it, doesn't come, I don't care. In as much as I can go mount a roadblock somewhere. Sometimes you'll be driving in remote areas, you see police officers on the road. And I want to be sure, maybe the leadership is also not aware that some people are actually in those kind of places. If you see the level of extortion going on, you understand? So other young people are seeing that, are saying, oh, they are making so much money. Even if it's just daily money I can be making, I don't care about the salary. So if all these kind of things are not looked into holistically, because you can say, oh, you want to stop minister this, minister that from actually siphoning money. It has been institutionalized. You need to reject the institution. You need to have a complete overhaul of the system. So if you don't have that solution, have an issue, don't present yourself in the first place.
Thank you so much for being in the program this morning and making sure you give Nigerians what you understand about the concept of good governance. But lastly, just in 30 seconds, what's your stand on human rights?
It's very key, it's fundamental, the right of every citizen of any country is actually something that should be looked into or should be taken with seriousness. We're hoping that Nigeria one day, our fundamental human rights will actually be recognized. It's because a lot of the times you see it's just on paper, it's not in reality.
Thank you so much, Samaila Musa, the Director Strategy and Programs of the CNG, giving us what you understand best when it comes to the issue of good governance. This is how far we can go for today's program. My name is Isa Nu. Have a lovely day. Thank you.